What is the greatest comeback to an insult you've ever heard? Here's my favorite self-burn. In high school math class, a nice, nerdy guy named Richard, a jerk whose name I forget. Let's call him Jerk. Jerk keeps calling Richard Dick. Like, hey, Dick, did you get the answer to 4? Richard keeps calmly saying it's Richard. Finally the teacher says, Richard, what do you prefer to be called? Richard says, I prefer Richard. Jerk says, well, I prefer Dick. After a few seconds of uproarious laughter from the rest of the class, Jerk realized what he said and sunk as far down in his seat as possible and never bugged Richard again. We were teenagers in the 80s, so this was the height of hilarity. I had a pretty fun one myself once from a few years ago. I was at a friend's place with a lot of people I didn't really know too well, having a few beers. Suddenly this dude from across the table says to me, quite aggressively, that my suspenders were ugly and that they made me look like I was trying too hard, which, to be fair, I was. Without skipping a beat I stood up, unclipped my suspenders, and put them in my pocket. When I sat down I looked straight into his eyes and replied, now let's talk about that face tattoo of yours. The best comeback I've heard was, you are the human equivalent of a participation award. This wasn't an insult personally, but it was a comeback on behalf of a nation. My father is Irish, and he used to work in California. One day a particularly condescending colleague complimented my dad's work by saying I never thought I'd get to meet an intelligent Irishman. To which my dad replied, hopefully someday I'll be as fortunate with Americans, which went completely over his colleague's head. You dress like a grandpa. That's why your mom calls me daddy. As someone who dresses like a grandpa, I'm using this. I'm gonna start dressing like a grandpa so I can use this. Someone once told me I look like the kind of guy who pisses sitting down. I said he looks like the kind of guy who shits standing up. You look like you pee sitting down. Me, yep. The doctor told me not to do any heavy lifting. I once gave a classmate a penny and told him, it'd always feel nice giving money to the poor. He responds with, thanks man. With this I can duck your mom and still get change. Go duck yourself. Duck me yourself, you coward. It's been told that former French President Jacques Chirac once made the following comeback, which is legendary in France. Some dude yelled at him, cornered. It means asshole, roughly, and he answered, pleased to meet you. I'm Jacques Chirac. Kid in class on the spectrum somewhere knocks over a lab stool. Smart ass goes, haha, you knocked over your chair. Stuff like this usually sets him off. To my amazement, he replies, no, I laid it down, just like I do with your mother. I gave him a high five. My former friend was 12 years my senior, and she fancied herself pretty heavily. She was okay, but I doubt anyone was losing sleep over her. Dressed were too young, trying to hold on to her youth. One day she pointed out that I was overweight and dumpy looking next to her. I'd finally had enough. She made these comments often and I said, well, what about you? Excuse me, she snapped. I have the body of a 22-year-old. Well, give it back. You're stretching it out. My sister, when she was 13, maybe 12, she was fighting with my little brother, 3 years older than her, and he was being aggressive and mean, and she clearly yells, I'd call you a dick, but you're so fake, you're a dildo. My mom and I were in the kitchen and my mom yells at her, go to your room. My sister goes upstairs and my mom has tears in her eyes, choking back laughter. Where did she learn that? I told everyone I knew at the time. I called it the sickest burn of all time. It's still so beautiful. From Casablanca, you got, you despise me, don't you? Rick, if I ever gave you any thought I might. One from me, a kid in class was being quite homophobic about another boy who just came out backs to the wall and such. I sighed and said, John, none of the girls in class fancy you. Why would the boys? My favorite, when I was younger, people liked to call others gay as an insult. When other kids would ask, are you gay? I think you're gay. I'd simply reply, now don't you go getting your hopes up. I have read this historical meme where it went like this. British person you. French people. Fight for only money. We. British. Fight for honor. French person well. People fight for what they need the most. Today in one of my classes we were working on a project about careers. And one of the kids shouted, "I want to be a male stripper." The teacher responded, "I think you might be missing some of the qualifications for that job." Edit, the student was male. I saw on another thread a long time ago busy restaurant in LA that had a lot of people waiting to be seated. Some has-been celebrity played the "Don't you know who I am" card with the host, who promptly responded, "Honey, I don't know who you are. I know who you used to be." A teacher once tried making out at me and another student were gay. So I waited for the class to settle down and said, "You seem to have an obsession with gay little boys, sir. I have never seen a class kick off like it, and to this day it's one of my proudest moments." I thought this said a teacher once tried making out with me and then I couldn't get past it. The annoying kid of the grade had a spray bottle and kept on spraying it on people even though they asked him to stop. And some girl walked to him and it went something like this. "Dude, can you stop? No a-hole here." Or, "Is it the only way you can make a girl wet?" Gordon Ramsay asks his daughter on camera, "So what's it like being the daughter of the most famous chef in the world?" His daughter replies, "I wouldn't know, Jamie Oliver's not my dad." Boom. Roasted. From a drill instructor to another recruit in boot camp, is that acne on your face? Or did you spend 9 months dodging the clothes hanger? Alright, so it goes like this. I had a bully in high school who was tiny, like under 5 foot. I was 6 feet 3 at the time, so he would always pick on me, throw stuff at my head, push me around, stuff like that. I never fought back cause I hate violence. Anyway, one day we were in a class together and the class went on lockdown. It wasn't a drill, but we were told the campus wasn't in danger. So jokingly I said, "I know why we are locked down. Maybe the zombie apocalypse started." The bully immediately replies, "You dumbass, zombies aren't real." I shot back, "Yeah, well, we didn't think hobbits were real, but you're standing here, aren't you?" He lunged at me and got in trouble. Someone once told me I had a face only a mother could love. I responded with, "Yes, your mother. I prefer you have a face for radio approach." Private Hudson, "Hey Vasquez, have you ever been mistaken for a man?" Private Vasquez, "No. Have you?" My dear grandmother. She had a quick and savage wit. My fiance and I held a meet the whole family get together at my house. It was the first time his father met my grandmother. His dad was a large, physically intimidating man with a beer gut. He began telling stories to my grandmother about how my fiance was a mischief maker when he was young. Then told my grandmother how he would take off his belt and whip Joe for being bad. My frail little grandmother stares directly at my hubby's dad's tummy and says, "Your belt? However could you find it?" Future father-in-law was gobsmacked. Sassy grandmas are the best grandmas. My science teacher assigned a really hard test and almost everyone failed. Everyone complained and she responded with, "Someone got a 93%. So it's not impossible." Then this one kid in the back said, "The answer key doesn't count, Mrs. Teacher." A neighborhood kid was picking on my daughter, and she replied with, "I'm sorry, you are so sad." Kid just walked away. In 8th grade, this kid yelled in the cramped hallway, "Hurry up and move, you'll smell like ass," to which I replied, "It's cause your mouth is too close to your nose." And my junior year of high school, this huge girl called me an ass wipe for no reason. So I said, "You're just mad, I can actually wipe my ass." Who the duck are you? I'm the guy who does his job, you must be the other guy. When I was in middle school many years ago, a bully was teasing an awkward kid about not being able to get girls and being gay and never being able to get laid. Another bully spoke up to the first bully and said, "Bitch, you ain't had pussy since pussy had you," and the entire class and the teacher started laughing. The original bully shut up. Update: teacher didn't start belly laughing with everyone in the middle of the class. This occurred between classes. As students were coming in, teacher definitely heard, definitely smiled, and stifled his laugh. If I remember correctly, he said, "Knock it off, boys. Time for class to begin." Nobody clapped. No principal came in and clapped. This happened 30 years ago. Bully 1 is a police officer now. Bully 2 is a semi-truck driver. Awkward kid is a mechanical engineer. The beauty of the food chain. Lunch lady got me in front my whole class. Tuna fish was for lunch. I said, "Tuna fish, I'd rather a shit sandwich." Without missing a beat, this 80-year-old lady fires back, "Wait right there, I can make you one in the back." Needless to say, I went with the tuna. Does your ass ever get jealous of the shit that comes out your mouth? Sitting in a bar at 3 AM off of Bourbon Street. The windows are just open shutters. Dude who just left the bar leans in on our table to shout at some friends still in the bar. One of our group makes a silly snide comment. Dude leaning in smacks the table with an open palm and says, "Everybody who ever loved you was wrong." Then he walks away without looking back. We still revel in that story. Just out of curiosity as to how good this actually was. For years, I was told that my sort of comeback was the best thing that anybody had ever heard. Mostly because I was the quiet kid that nobody could get a rise out of. Naturally, because they couldn't get a rise out of me, everybody tried to get me flustered by insulting me or framing me for things that no teacher ever believed, because it was never the quiet kid. Essentially, I walked into class one day and the teacher wasn't there, but this other girl, S, was up at the whiteboard writing out a long-running joke about our teacher that pissed him off. It was about his assigned teacher number, and 2 years of developing a joke is a bit hard to explain. It became a bit of an inside joke. Either way, I sat down, she finished, and the teacher came in. Noticing what was written on the board, he asked who did it, and immediately, this girl and a few of the girls around her said, "Severin did it." Note, we were about 15 at the time, so they should have been beyond this. I don't know what it was, but something made me wordlessly walk up to the board, fix her spelling and punctuation errors, and then sit down. Only when I had sat down did I turn to the girl who'd done it to say, "I have standards." The class collectively lost their shit, including the girls who hadn't seen it coming. And the teacher laughed so hard he went red in the face and cried. To me, it seems like they just found it so funny because it was me, because I don't see anything particularly special or savage about it. 1. Everyone thinks you're an asshole. 2. Well, you know what everyone thinks about you. Nothing. No one ever thinks about you. I know I don't. A street hustler is trying to hand out sell CDs and an overweight gentleman walks by and says, "No thanks." Hustler: if it was a donut, you'd eat it. Tubby: if it was $1, you'd beg for it. I was at a Jets home game back when the Giants and them shared Giants Stadium. Someone wearing a Jets jersey says to someone wearing a Miami Dolphins uniform, "This is our house." Dude in Miami Dolphins uniform: "You're in Giants Stadium, asshole." Lost my shit after that one. A long time ago, when mom jokes were the vogue in my early 20s and the late 90s, and before I realized that courage wasn't just some level of manliness, I was telling a friend that they really needed to man up and tell someone the truth. I looked over and said, "Dude, don't make me punch you where your balls are supposed to be," all implying that indeed he was in fact ballless. Without dropping a beat, my friend just laid this one out there: "Dude, you're gonna punch your mom in the mouth." Touché. Touché. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe,